Captain James Walker stood at the large window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. His brown eyes tracked the movement of 3 alien ships that looked like silver teardrops against the black of space. They had been scanning Earth's defenses for the past 6 hours, and he knew exactly what they were thinking. "Sir, the Galactic Council ships are requesting our weapons inventory again," Lieutenant Mike Rogers said from his station. "They say our first report must be incorrect." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Send them the same data, Lieutenant. Let them see exactly what we want them to see." The Earth Defense Fleet consisted of just 30 ships, none of them equipped with the energy shields or antimatter weapons that were common among other spacefaring races. To the aliens above, Earth must have looked like a child playing at war with toy soldiers. "They're sending another message," Rogers announced, his fingers moving across the holographic display. They're downgrading us to Category D civilization status." A few junior officers at nearby stations exchanged knowing looks. This was exactly what Walker had expected. In the complex hierarchy of the Galactic Council, Category D meant a species had achieved spaceflight, but posed no military threat. It was diplomatic speak for defenseless. "Captain," Rogers continued, "they're noting that our orbital defense platforms only use kinetic weapons and nuclear warheads. They're classifying our technology as primitive." Walker watched as one of the alien ships moved closer to Earth's atmosphere, its scanning beams painting the planet's surface in invisible light. They would see the bits and pieces Earth wanted them to see: aging satellite networks, basic missile systems, and a handful of space stations that would look like children's building blocks compared to the massive structures other civilizations had built. "Sir," a young analyst named Robert Turner called out, "I'm intercepting their internal communications. Their universal translators are working well enough for us to understand them." He paused, listening through his headset. They're laughing at us." "Good," Walker said quietly, moving away from the window. "Let them laugh." He walked to the center of the command deck, where a large holographic display showed Earth and the alien ships in real time. With a gesture, he brought up the classified defense grid, the one that didn't appear on any official records. Thousands of stealth satellites and automated defense platforms appeared as tiny green dots in the projection, all of them invisible to the alien scanners. "How long until they'd file their report?" Walker asked. "They're preparing it now," Rogers replied. "They're recommending Earth as a potential resource extraction point. According to their assessment, we lack the military capability to resist even a small invasion force." Walker nodded slowly, remembering the briefing he'd received when he first took this command. Earth had learned long ago that the best defense wasn't showing your strength. It was letting others underestimate you. "Send word to all stations," Walker ordered. "Maintain current protocols. Let them think what they want to think." As the alien ships prepared to leave, Walker returned to the window. The truth was, humanity had developed energy shields 40 years ago, but chose not to deploy them. They had mastered antimatter weapons, but kept them hidden in underground facilities. The reason was simple: showing off advanced technology would only invite challenge from larger civilizations. "Sir," Rogers spoke up one last time. They filed their final report to the Galactic Council. They're classifying Earth as, and I quote, "a technically spacefaring species with minimal defensive capabilities and no significant military threat." Walker watched the alien ships disappear into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind their false assessment of Earth's capabilities. Little did they know that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was being underestimated. "Lieutenant," Walker said, "make a note in the log. Operation Sheep's Clothing continues as planned." He turned to face his crew, his expression serious. "Let them think we're defenseless. By the time they learn differently, it will be too late." 3 weeks after the Galactic Council's assessment, Captain Walker was awakened by flashing red lights and the station's voice. Multiple ships detected entering the solar system. Signatures matched Meridian Empire vessels. Walker dressed quickly and hurried to the command center. The main screen showed 15 warships, their hull designs resembling giant manta rays, moving toward Earth at sublight speed. "Status report," Walker commanded as he entered the bridge. Lieutenant Rogers looked up from his station. "Sir, they're not trying to hide. 8 battleships, 5 carriers, and 2 command ships. They're broadcasting their presence on all frequencies." "Let's hear it," Walker ordered, settling into his command chair. A deep mechanical voice filled the command center. The universal translator worked to convert the alien language. "Attention Earth authorities. This is High Commander Dex of the Meridian Empire. Our scans show your world is rich in rare minerals and biological resources. Surrender these resources peacefully, or we will take them by force. You have 6 Earth hours to respond." The junior officers looked nervous, but Walker smiled. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had been waiting for, someone to take the bait. "Open a channel," Walker said. When Rogers nodded, he continued, "High Commander Dex, this is Captain James Walker of the Earth Defense Fleet. We acknowledge your message and invite you to join us for negotiations." There was a long pause before the alien responded. "You wish to negotiate? Our scans show you have no weapons that could harm our ships. This is not a negotiation, Captain. It is an ultimatum." Walker leaned forward in his chair. "Then let me extend an invitation, Commander. Send a delegation to Earth. Let us show you exactly what you'd be dealing with. Unless," he paused for effect, "you're afraid of a defenseless planet." The command center fell silent. Walker had just challenged their honor. A calculated risk based on everything they knew about the Meridian Empire's warrior culture. After 2 minutes of silence, Dex responded, "Your primitive psychology is transparent, Captain, but we will accept your invitation. Prepare to receive our shuttle in 3 hours. Any sign of treachery will result in immediate orbital bombardment." When the transmission ended, Turner spoke up from his station. "Sir, was it wise to provoke them? They could wipe out our major cities from orbit." Walker stood up and straightened his uniform. "They could try, Robert. But right now, they think they're dealing with primitive humans who don't know any better. That's exactly what we want." He walked to the tactical display and brought up the location of Earth's hidden defenses. "Send word to all stealth platforms, maintain Ghost Protocol, and contact the World War Museum in London. Tell them to prepare for some special visitors." "The museum, sir?" Rogers asked, confused. "Yes, Lieutenant. If these aliens want to understand what they're dealing with, we should start with a history lesson." Walker's expression grew serious. "They think we're primitive because we don't have energy shields or antimatter weapons. They need to understand why we don't need them." As the command center prepared for the alien delegation's arrival, Walker reviewed the classified files on the Meridian Empire. Like most galactic civilizations, they had evolved as a cooperative species. Their wars were fought with rules, their weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. They had never developed nuclear weapons, never experienced total war. "Sir," Rogers called out, "the alien shuttle is preparing to launch from their command ship. Should I alert Earth's Defense Council?" Walker shook his head. "No need. Just make sure the museum curator has the World War II exhibit ready." He paused, then added, "and the nuclear weapons display. It's time to show our visitors what happens when humans decide to fight." The World War Museum stood quiet in the early morning London fog. Captain Walker watched as 3 Meridian delegates stepped out of their shuttle. They were tall, with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms each. Their leader, Ambassador Rel, wore ceremonial armor that sparkled in the dim light. "Welcome to Earth," Walker said, gesturing toward the museum entrance. "We thought it best to begin your visit here." "A storage place for old things?" Rel asked, his translator making his voice sound metallic. "We came to discuss resources, not examine your artifacts." Walker led them through the large doors. "To understand our response to your demands, you need to understand us first. The first hall contained weapons from ancient times, spears, swords, and bows. The aliens walked past quickly, unimpressed. Their own civilization had similar relics. Primitive weapons, one of the delegates muttered. As expected, Walker stopped at the World War I exhibit. Large photos covered the walls, showing trenches stretching to the horizon. "This was our first global war," he explained. "Millions died fighting over imaginary lines on maps. We killed each other with poison gas, machine guns, and artillery." The aliens studied the images. "How many died?" Rel asked. "Around 20 million. The delegates exchanged looks. "Impossible," Rel said. "No species would." Walker moved them to the World War II section. 20 years later, we did it again. This time, over 60 million died. He pointed to photos of bombed cities, lines of tanks, and massive warships. We fought on land, at sea, and in the air. Every major nation dedicated their entire economy to making weapons. "But why?" one delegate asked, his four hands twitching nervously. "Why destroy your own world?" Instead of answering, Walker led them to a special room. Inside was a replica of Little Boy, the first atomic bomb used in war. "This was dropped on a city called Hiroshima," he said quietly. "It killed 80,000 people in seconds." The aliens stepped back. Their species had discovered nuclear physics but never weaponized it. The concept of using such power against their own kind was unthinkable. After that, Walker continued, "We built thousands of nuclear weapons, enough to destroy our world several times over. We called it mutually assured destruction, the knowledge that if anyone started a nuclear war, everyone would die." Rel's translator crackled as he spoke rapidly. "Your own species developed weapons that could destroy your planet, and you kept them." Walker nodded. "We still have them, but they're not our most dangerous weapons." He led them to the final exhibit, a massive wall covered with photos of different weapons and war machines. "Everything you see here was created because humans fought humans. We didn't develop these weapons to fight aliens. We made them to fight ourselves." The delegates huddled together, all four arms of each alien wrapped around themselves, a sign of distress in their species. "Your council report classified us as primitive because we don't have energy shields or antimatter cannons," Walker said. "But ask yourselves this: what kind of species develops world-ending weapons just to use against itself? What kind of creatures spend centuries perfecting the art of war before even reaching space?" Rel stepped forward. "You're showing us this to frighten us." Walker shook his head. "No, I'm showing you this so you understand. Those ships you brought, they're designed for fighting civilized wars against civilized species. Humanity has never fought a civilized war. We don't know how." As they walked back toward the museum entrance, Rel spoke quietly to his delegates in their native tongue. Walker's hidden translator picked up their words. "If this is what they do to themselves, what would they do to us?" Walker smiled slightly. The museum had done its job. Soon, these delegates would return to their ships with a new understanding. Earth wasn't defenseless. It was something far more dangerous, a world where war had been refined into an art form, and peace was a choice rather than a necessity. After the museum tour, Walker led the alien delegation to a scientific research center outside London. The Meridian delegates were quieter now, their earlier confidence replaced by uneasy glances at every human they passed. "Your weapons history is concerning," Ambassador Rel said as they entered the building. "But weapons alone don't make a species dangerous. Our empire has faced many violent races before." Walker nodded to a scientist who waited for them, Dr. Anna Miller. She stood before a large screen showing various Earth animals. "That's why we're here," Walker said. "Dr. Miller will explain what really makes humans different." "Different how?" one of the delegates asked. Dr. Miller pulled up an image of early humans hunting. "Most intelligent species evolved from prey animals or pack predators. But humans, we're something else entirely. We're persistence hunters." The aliens looked confused. Their translator struggled with the term. "Let me demonstrate," Miller said. She showed a video of a tribal hunter following an antelope under the hot sun. Most predators chase their prey at high speed, catching it quickly or giving up. Humans, we follow our prey for hours or even days. We walk after it, tracking it, following its trail, never letting it rest. The video showed the antelope running away, but the hunter kept walking after it. Hour after hour, mile after mile. The prey runs fast, but must stop to rest, Miller explained. We just keep walking. Eventually, the animal collapses from exhaustion. No other predator hunts this way. Rel's forearms twitched nervously. "But you're no longer hunters. You have farms, cities. That's what makes us more dangerous," Walker cut in. "We took that same persistence and applied it to everything we do. When we can't solve a problem quickly, we don't give up. We keep coming, keep trying, keep pushing until we succeed or die trying." Miller changed the display to show human biological data. We can survive in almost any environment on Earth. Desert, Arctic, jungle. Humans adapt and thrive. We can eat almost anything. We heal from injuries that would kill other species. Our endurance is unmatched in the animal kingdom. The delegates whispered among themselves in their native language. Walker's hidden translator caught fragments. "Explains the war data. Never seen this before. Dangerous implications. But most importantly," Miller continued, "we get bored easily. Our brains need constant challenges. That's why we turn everything into a competition." She showed clips of human sports, marathons, mountain climbing, extreme sports. "We do these things for fun." One of the delegates stepped back. "You deliberately put yourselves in danger, for entertainment." Walker smiled. "Remember those primitive weapons you saw in the museum? We didn't develop those because we had to. We developed them because we couldn't stop thinking of new ways to solve problems, even if those problems were how do we fight better." Miller pulled up one final display, a comparison of alien species in the galaxy. Every other known intelligent species evolved to either fight quickly or run away. You fight by your rules, with your advanced weapons, and if you can't win quickly, you retreat. Humans? We just keep coming. Rel's translator crackled as he spoke quickly. The Council's assessment. They didn't understand. "Your weapons aren't primitive. You're primitive. Your entire species is." "Exactly," Walker said quietly. "We're what most species evolved past. But we never lost those early traits. We just got smarter about using them." As they left the research center, Walker noticed how the delegates now kept their distance from every human they saw. They weren't looking at a civilized species anymore. They were seeing what humanity really was. Persistence predators with advanced technology and a drive to never give up. "One last thing," Walker added as they walked. "Everything you've learned today. That's just what we're willing to show you. Think about that when you make your report to your empire." The aliens didn't respond. They didn't need to. The fear in their eyes said everything. The military training facility in Norway sat between snow-covered mountains. Captain Walker watched Ambassador Rel and his delegates shiver despite their environmental suits. The aliens had been quiet since learning about human persistence hunting, but what they were about to see would disturb them even more. "This is one of our basic training facilities," Walker explained, leading them to an observation platform, "where we prepare our soldiers." "Basic?" Rel asked. "You mean for beginners?" "Exactly." Walker pointed to a group of soldiers running through the snow, carrying heavy packs. "Those recruits have been out there for 12 hours now. They'll continue for another 12. The aliens watched in silence as humans pushed through deep snow, climbed frozen cliffs, and crossed icy rivers. Their translator struggled to process the human shouts of encouragement. "They're not being punished?" one delegate asked. "They choose this." "Choose it," Walker smiled. "People compete to get in here. Watch this next group." Below them, soldiers jumped into a hole cut in a frozen lake. They stayed in the freezing water while their instructors shouted at them. Instead of panicking, the soldiers sang songs. Your people willingly submerge in frozen water and sing. Rel's 4 arms wrapped around himself tightly. Why? To learn their limits, Walker said, then push past them. The demonstration continued. Soldiers climbed sheer cliffs without safety ropes. Others practiced fighting in hand-to-hand combat in the snow. A group parachuted from high altitude, landing with perfect precision despite the harsh wind. This is just the physical training, Walker explained. They also learned tactics, weapons, survival skills, everything they need to keep fighting no matter the conditions. The aliens watched as soldiers practiced breaking free from restraints, escaping from underwater vehicles, and surviving in makeshift shelters. But your weapons are so simple, one delegate protested weakly. We saw no energy shields, no plasma rifles. Walker led them to an indoor range. Sergeant Tom, show our guests the results of last week's exercise. A burly soldier stepped forward. Yes, sir. Last week, we dropped 50 recruits in the Arctic with just basic tools. Their mission was to disable an enemy base. He pulled up a holographic display. In 3 days, they built weapons from local materials, infiltrated the base, and accomplished their mission. Built weapons? Rel asked. From what? Whatever they found, the sergeant replied. Trees, rocks, scrap metal. Humans can turn anything into a weapon. It's one of our basic skills. Walker noticed how the aliens moved closer together, a defensive posture. Would you like to see our advanced training facilities? He offered. No, Rel said quickly. This is sufficient. They walked back toward their shuttle. Along the way, they passed a group of civilians hiking up a mountain trail. More military training, one delegate asked nervously. No, Walker replied. Those are tourists. They do this for fun on their days off work. The aliens stopped walking. Their translator couldn't seem to process what they were saying to each other, but their body language showed pure disbelief. Let me understand, Rel said finally. Your civilians voluntarily climb mountains in dangerous conditions for entertainment. Of course, Walker nodded. We also jump out of aircraft, dive in deep oceans, race vehicles at high speeds, climb frozen waterfalls. There are countless ways humans challenge themselves for fun. As they reached the shuttle, Rel turned to Walker. The Galactic Council's report. They thought you were defenseless because you lack advanced weapons. But that's not true, is it? Your entire species is a weapon. Walker watched the aliens hurry into their shuttle. Something to consider when you make your decision about those resources you wanted, he called after them. The shuttle door closed quickly. As it took off, Walker smiled. He didn't need to threaten them. The truth about humanity was threat enough. Back at Earth Defense Station Alpha, Captain Walker led the increasingly nervous alien delegation to a secure briefing room. The walls were lined with screens showing Earth's current defensive grid, the simple one they'd allowed the aliens to detect earlier. Before you leave, Walker said, there's one last thing you need to understand about humans. We're not just dangerous because of how we fight. We're dangerous because of how we think. Ambassador Rel sat stiffly in his chair, all 4 arms crossed. What do you mean? Walker pressed a button. The regular defense grid disappeared, replaced by a much larger, more complex network of satellites, stations, and weapons platforms. Red dots appeared everywhere, thousands of them. What is this? One delegate asked. The real defense grid, Walker said calmly. The one your scanners couldn't detect. The one no alien race has ever detected. Rel stood up suddenly. Impossible. Our scans showed only basic weapons. Of course they did. That's what we wanted them to show. Walker brought up detailed schematics. Remember how you said our weapons were primitive? That wasn't because we couldn't build better ones. It was because we chose not to reveal them. The screens filled with images of advanced weapon systems, energy shields far more efficient than anything the Meridian Empire had, antimatter torpedoes that could split planets, stealth technology that made ships virtually undetectable. But the Galactic Council's assessment, one delegate stammered, was exactly what we wanted. Walker finished. Think about what you've learned about humans. We survived multiple world wars. We turned our own planet into a training ground. We build weapons for fun. He paused. Did you really think we stopped innovating just because we reached space? Rel's translator crackled with his rapid speech. You deliberately appeared weak. Why? Walker walked to the window, looking out at Earth. Because we learned something from all our wars. The most dangerous position isn't appearing strong. It's appearing weak while being strong. Every empire that tried to look powerful eventually fell. But a civilization that looks harmless, nobody sees them as a threat until it's too late. He turned back to the aliens. Those primitive kinetic weapons you detected, they're not primitive. They're intentionally designed to look simple while being devastatingly effective. Those basic missiles, they can reconfigure themselves mid-flight to counter any defense. Those outdated satellites, they're more advanced than anything your empire has built. The delegates huddled together, their blue skin turning pale. Why are you telling us this? Rel asked. Because you need to understand what challenging Earth really means. Walker's voice grew serious. Those weapons you saw in the museum, the ones we used to kill our own kind, those were just our practice runs. Imagine what we've designed specifically for alien threats. He brought up one final display, a simulation showing what would happen if Earth's full defensive capabilities were activated. The aliens watched in horror as their mighty fleet disappeared in seconds. But we haven't destroyed your ships, Walker said quietly. We haven't activated our real defenses. We're giving you a choice, the same choice we give everyone. Leave peacefully, or find out exactly how dangerous a primitive species can be. Rel stood up shakily. The resources, they're not worth. A wise decision. Walker nodded. When you report back, tell your empire this. Earth isn't defenseless. We're just patient, and we've had thousands of years to prepare for any species that might threaten us. As the delegates hurried toward their shuttle, Walker heard them frantically communicating with their fleet. Within minutes, the Meridian ships began powering up their engines, preparing to leave. Walker smiled. They had learned humanity's greatest truth. Appearing primitive wasn't a weakness. It was the ultimate strategy of a species that had mastered the art of war long before reaching the stars. 1 month after the Meridian Empire's retreat, Captain Walker sat in his office reading the official report they had submitted to the Galactic Council. The document had caused such a stir that copies were now circulating through every major civilization in the galaxy. You might want to see this, sir, Lieutenant Rogers said, entering the office. The Council just updated Earth's classification in their database. Walker brought up the holographic display. The previous Category D rating had been replaced with a new designation, Category X. Extreme caution required. They finally understand, Walker said, leaning back in his chair. He continued reading the Meridian report that had caused this change. Warning to all civilizations. Previous assessments of Earth have been dangerously incorrect. Their apparent primitive state is a deliberate deception. Consider the following. 1. The humans are persistence predators who turned their entire planet into a combat training facility and called it civilization. 2. They developed world-ending weapons to use against themselves, merely to prove they could. 3. Their civilians voluntarily engage in activities that would be considered military training on other worlds, claiming they do this for entertainment. 4. Every tool, every technology, every aspect of their environment can and will be turned into a weapon if needed. 5. Their apparent lack of advanced defenses is a strategic choice, not a technological limitation. Walker scrolled through pages of analysis and reached the conclusion. Most critically, We have discovered why Earth maintains its seemingly primitive state. Their strategy is unprecedented in galactic history. While other races compete to display power, humans deliberately hide their true capabilities. Their defensive grid is far more extensive than any scan has detected. Their weapons are disguised as primitive but contain technological advances we still cannot understand. Their entire civilization is a carefully constructed illusion designed to encourage others to underestimate them. But most terrifying is their patience. They do not react to provocations as expected. They wait, observe, and prepare. By the time an aggressor realizes Earth's true nature, it is already too late. Earth should be marked as absolutely forbidden for resource extraction or military action. Any civilization considering hostile action against Earth should understand. You are not dealing with a primitive species. You are dealing with a predator species that has mastered the art of appearing harmless while being lethal. Walker closed the report and looked out his window at Earth. Already, alien ships were giving the planet a wider berth in their travels. Trade requests were coming in from species that had previously ignored Earth. The galaxy was finally learning what humans had known all along. True power isn't about showing strength. It's about choosing when to reveal it. His communication screen lit up with a message from Earth Defense Command. Captain Walker, multiple civilizations requesting diplomatic relations. They're offering technology exchanges, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Walker smiled. Tell them we'll consider their offers. No need to rush. He stood and walked to his window, watching Earth rotate peacefully below. The same planet that had survived ice ages, megavolcanoes, and countless wars. The same species that had turned survival into an art form and warfare into a science. A world that had learned the greatest military secret of all. Sometimes, the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't bare its teeth until it's ready to strike. Sir, Rogers called from the doorway. Should I update our defense status? No, Lieutenant, Walker replied. Let's keep playing the long game. After all, he smiled, looking at the alien ships now carefully avoiding Earth's space. Being underestimated has worked pretty well for us so far. In the vast darkness of space, Earth continued its quiet orbit around the sun. To the casual observer, it still looked like a simple blue marble floating in space. But now, every civilization in the galaxy knew the truth. That beautiful blue marble was home to the most dangerous species of all, the one smart enough to appear harmless.